Good afternoon. Let's begin with item number 1 on our proposed agenda, invocation. Let's take a moment of silence to reflect on the world's activities and being thankful for what we have. All right, thank you very much. And we'll officially call the meeting to order and welcome everyone here this evening. And number 3 is the pledge of allegiance to the flag. To my right, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Number 4, consideration of approving the agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
May I have agreement that we add something? I would like to add an additional discussion of possible actions regarding the county's proposed water rate increase to come after the public comments, so perhaps as 6A.
Anybody else want to?
I'll second.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anything else about the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion we approve the agenda as amended?
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion made and seconded to approve as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimously approved as amended. Number 5, minutes for February 16 and February 23. Is there a motion that we approve those?
I have one correction for the town clerk on page 4. Under discussion, possible action on wholesale water rates, in the second paragraph, you typed that he did not speak to irritation rates. It should be irrigation, and spell check would not have caught that.
Thank you.
All right. There's a motion to approve that with that correction.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Number 6, public comments on the agenda / general items. Madam Clerk, my understanding is you've had some comments.
Yes, we have over 50 comments. A majority of them were concerned with the proposed trash ordinance. You have them before you, and I have them online for the public to see, so however you would like us to proceed.
Did everyone receive those?
I have to say, I know I received the majority of the trash ones. I don't know if I received everything on the bike path, paving and all of that. I would actually wonder if, because there aren't that many not related to trash, could perhaps we read the ones that are on the bike path, the paving and the smaller groups, so that we hear what the public is saying, particularly on the bike paths.
What's the pleasure of the board? How many are there?
Heather indicates there's 4 on the bike path, 1 on Brunswick Avenue paving, 1 on crosswalks on Ocean Boulevard, 1 on changing the speed limit, 1 on parking, and 1 on a concern about something to do with trash.
Pleasure of the board.
I would suggest that since we're going to not read the 49 entries having to do with the proposed trash, that we just post all of the entries and people can read them all online.
Fine.
Okay, all right, that's a consensus of the board, post them online. All the commissioners have them.
And they are posted currently online for anybody listening. They're under the Board of Commissioners tab and the Town Government tab.
Okay, do you have anything else, Madam Clerk?
No, sir.
6A, Ms. Pat?
Okay, at the last Board of Commissioners meeting, the town manager did raise with the board that the county was proposing to raise our water rate considerably by almost 82%, and at that point asked if there was any action that we wanted him to take. At that point, we didn't say anything, and I was already working on the situation with a group I belong to, but we were waiting to have additional feedback from the county to see how things were progressing with some of the discussions we were having. Last week I read in the Brunswick Beacon about Shallotte officials and their comments about the county water hike. And at this point, it sounds to me as if there hasn't been any clear change of direction at the county level to look at whether or not these increases can be moderated, phased in or something. So we've been looking further into what these water rate changes would mean to the town of Holden Beach. David and I have been sort of working on this, and the sheet that you have in front of you that says implications for the town of Holden Beach from the proposed Brunswick County wholesale water increase does lay out to you what the rate increase is going to be compared to what I'll just call a county resident, because the town of Holden Beach purchases wholesale water, which is a different rate than is going to be charged in the county. Now, the county commissioners and staff have given a sort of an estimate of $9 a month for a county resident, although they're now saying in the newspaper it was $9 to $12, maybe $12. And they have suggested that the wholesale purchasers, the residents for wholesale purchase, should see something comparable. So we've looked into this a bit, and you'll see that there is a table where I have calculated the current Holden Beach cost and then what the cost will be with the wholesale price increase, assuming there is no change to the town base charge every month, which will have to be re-examined. And then I've compared it to what will happen at the county level. The county has already decided that they will increase their base charge by $4 a month. So what clearly shows is as you get to the high, this is just household water, by the way, not irrigation. So as you get to the higher use rates in thousands of gallons, households with higher rates up at 6,000, 7,000 gallons a month, even with our existing base payment every month of $18, we're going to be paying more for water than a county resident at the same usage. And the higher you get, the bigger the change gets. So that's one thing. Irrigation's very easy to calculate because in irrigation we have a base rate, a meter read rate, and then we charge for every gallon, whereas for household use the base covers the first 2,000 gallons. So basically your irrigation costs are going to go up 82% if you just do a strict calculation. Whatever you're paying for your water now, it's going to go up 82%. Because our water enterprise fund is just like the county water enterprise fund. Revenues have to balance the expenditures. So I would foresee that with the projected increase in household water as well as irrigation. I would think that the property owners who rent their houses during the summer in particular are going to see several months of very much higher water bills come 2022. Finally, there's some additional costs that we need to keep in mind, that the town also is a purchaser of water for the restrooms, for the splash pad, for water fountains, for town hall, and the increases to the town functioning will also have to be borne out of the general fund and the B Park fund. Also, it's highly likely that with such a significant increase in water costs, we'll have to have a rate study done to make sure again that as we get into 2022 and beyond, that our revenues and our expenditures will balance as required for an enterprise fund. So that is just the assessment of what we think is probably going to happen to Holden Beach from this proposed 82% wholesale water increase. Now, I'm going to take it a little bit further because, again, I've been working on this, David and I've been working on it with another group for 6 weeks or so. And what I can say is, although I'm speaking as a town commissioner, the concerns we have on the implications of the water rate increases apply to all the residents in the county as well as the town of Holden Beach. I think we should appreciate that hard decisions had to be made at the county level over the past couple of years to ensure that we have adequate, safe water for all the county residents. The problems resulting from the industrial pollution upstream in the Cape Fear River have led to concurrent expansion and water improvement projects, the reverse osmosis, which are costly. Now, these costs have to be covered because the county has an enterprise fund, but paying for such a large rate increase all at once is particularly difficult when many residents are being impacted by the economic downturn due to COVID. Now, in hindsight, the potential ramifications of the county proposed costs could probably have been better communicated to our town and the county residents since the 2019 preliminary estimate. Communications with customers and the public should have started several months ago to avoid the time crunch situation we're now facing with budget process already in progress. So some specific suggestions. Wholesale and retail rates are quite different. Rate equity for residents and municipalities paying wholesale versus county residents must be thoroughly and transparently considered before final rate setting. I think that everybody would like to see what their glass of water is going to cost. The county should aggressively seek state and federal funding to help defray some of the costs of the reverse osmosis system necessitated by industrial pollution. The county should look to every possible cost reduction and I'll just call it customer reimbursement possibility to help phase in the full magnitude of the needed increase. This has to be paid for, but going from one month to the next and having this big of a change in rate is going to be difficult for a lot of people and small businesses. And finally, a meeting between the county and the impacted municipal leadership and staff to brainstorm viable solutions could be a good first step. A shared concern usually leads to a shared solution. So having said all of that, what I would really like to ask the board is for the town manager and myself and whoever else is able to help, authorize us to communicate any and all of our issues to the county, including working with neighboring communities as necessary so that we have a single voice as much as possible, potentially create a resolution for the April meeting regarding our position and suggestions about the water rate increase, and finally to apprise our public what is happening and ask them to express their reservations to the county as necessary. So those are the asks to the Board of Commissioners, and I would like to have, for the town manager and I to have permission to proceed.
Just, Pat, can I ask you a question? Obviously, the people listening in don't have the benefit of looking at the chart that we're looking at here. So just for my benefit as well as the people, am I right in saying that the cost for the use of 3,000 gallons, the way it's proposed, without a rise in rates by Holden Beach, would go from $21.10 to $23.63?
Correct.
Okay. And then 4,000, I'll just do, I think most people are probably in the $3,000, $4,000, and $5,000 range. So
Gallon range.
Gallon, I'm sorry, gallon range. And the difference with the 3,000 is, looks like $2.53 increase. If you use 4,000, it goes up $5.06. And if you use 5,000 gallons, it goes up $7.59.
Right, now that's at this point in time with the assumption that there would not be a change in the monthly base rate. And since the monthly base rate also includes the first 2,000 gallons, that's going to be over $10 now. So that's what a reevaluation of all this is going to mean to the town is, and we're not the only town that's going to face this. So these are just numbers based on some assumptions. And again, if you have irrigation as well, which a lot of people with their yards, landscape, and pools have irrigation, you have to do your calculation as well for what it's going to mean to your irrigation bill. And that's what I mean by particularly, I think, property owners who rent their homes and have large numbers of people in their houses, and they can have several months of high usage. They're going to see really significant increases in their water bills, and they need to be prepared for this.
David, as far as the town is concerned, is it likely that we'll be able to hold the rate at the current level, or is it more likely we'll have to raise the rate because of what the county is doing with the water rates?
I don't share Commissioner Kwiatkowski's optimism that we could keep the base rate in.
I'm not optimistic, I'm just not.
Their numbers, we're
Yeah.
spitballing. I mean, the simple math is 1,000 gallons of water is going to be charged an extra $2.35. I don't know where to make that up from. The water and sewer fund runs on skin as it is. I don't foresee any hope for revising any expenses in that fund downward, and would project in the budget that we are going to have to pass on any wholesale increases in total.
Okay. So then, for the people listening, those numbers I just read are probably not going to be accurate. It's going to be more than that because we're going to have to pass it along.
It's $2.35 a thousand.
Okay.
So again, I'm asking the board to basically commission the town manager to do these actions. Communicate to the county as appropriate, working with our neighbors as well. Probably presenting a resolution in April and apprising our own residents, our public, about what is happening, and encouraging them, if they have concerns, to express them to the county.
Ms. Pat, I lost you on
Yeah.
the resolution. What were you saying about the resolution?
That it could be that creating a resolution of our position on the water increase and what we're asking to the county will be created, and if so, it'll be brought in April to this board.
At our regular meeting.
At our regular meeting.
Okay. Any comments? Questions? Mr. Hewitt, do you want to add anything?
Just that those three asks, I think, are what we need to do in order to communicate our issues with the county concerning the water rate increase.
Is it the consensus of the board to move ahead with that? Yes. Let the record reflect that, Madam Clerk. Consensus of the board from Ms. Pat and Mr. Hewitt to move forward with that. Anything else, Ms. Pat?
That's enough.
Okay. Okay, we're on number 7. Shane Lippard, roadway work. Mr. Hewitt, you want to address anything before?
Yes, sir. I placed a memo, supplemental information provided the board with that and included it for the package. Shane is here for any detailed questions that the board may have, but to suffice it to say that we have secured 3 bids for the second phase of Brunswick Avenue resurfacing. The apparent low bidder is Highland Paving at $123,000. That exceeds our program construction budget by $10,656. If the board wants to proceed with award of that work, we've got to adjust the budget accordingly from within existing funds. It's anticipated that the work's going to happen between Easter and Memorial Day sometime. And so if the board would choose to award the paving work, the suggested motion is before you. But Shane's here if you have any specific questions.
David, could you remind me, did we use Highland last year? Yes. Have there been any complaints about the quality of the work and how Brunswick Avenue, the area that was paved, is looking and performing?
Not to my knowledge. Probably the complaints that we've had are where we've had to go in and cut it to put a water line in or a service line.
Okay.
Have you had any complaints, Chris?
No.
All right, Chair's looking for a motion. Anybody want to award this contract?
Yeah.
To remind the board, this is part of our capital plan. We had adjusted the capital plan by shifting the prioritization of the streets to the right in order to make room for the paving of Brunswick Avenue a priority, and we split it up into 2 pieces, the first portion occurring last year, and this is the second portion of that.
I move that we grant the second half of the Brunswick Avenue paving contract to Highland.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Question?
I would like to ask David, if that section of the road that was cut out, I know there's at least one, can it be fixed?
Yeah, I was gonna meet with Shane and, probably the contractor, and then get him to go ahead and do that patch while he was here. That's what I've,
You're talking
every year.
about the patch where the cut was, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Does that need to be included in this?
It won't be included in that, but I have funding for M&R streets and other places that I can, what we've done in the past is bill it separate if I've got any additional work that goes along with that.
Yeah. Just don't want a nice new street with a hole in it, so.
Okay, a motion and a second.
Just one comment to the motion. Would you tack on there, subject to the realignment of funds, because the delta is
Correct.
being made up from the
Correct.
governing bodies available to appropriate, and I just want to make sure that
Good point.
there's a capture.
Motion to grant the contract for Brunswick Avenue, second half of Brunswick Avenue paving to Highland with the necessary budget amendment.
Second.
All right, so we've had discussion. Any more discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. It's unanimous. Thank you, Shane, for your help, sir.
You're welcome.
Number 8, Seagull. Town clerk.
We've received signatures from the majority of property owners on Seagull Drive requesting the improvement of the existing soil roadway of Seagull Drive. The next step of the process is to adopt a preliminary resolution, which is before the board. You're also required to schedule a public hearing on the resolution. We're recommending that be scheduled for April 20th at 5 p.m. Once you do that, we'll mail out notice and publish it into the newspaper. There is, on the actual resolution, there's one error in section 3 of the now therefore be it resolved. Instead of chapter 160A, section 217, it should read 218. So if the board wants to proceed, you would have to set the public hearing on the preliminary resolution for April 20th at 5 p.m. and adopt resolution 2104 with the change, please.
Everybody get that?
Yeah, I move we set the special meeting on April 20th at 5 p.m.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Good?
Just before the board votes on that, there's going to be some takedown specifics that we're going to need to get from the engineer. Is that going to allow you enough time to
Yes.
revisit that? Okay. Yes, sir.
Motion on the floor, looking for a second. All right, motion made and seconded. Discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Unanimous, Madam Clerk.
And that was for the public hearing, correct? Okay, we just need the resolution approved.
Move that we adopt resolution 2104 with the suggested change to part 3 under now therefore be it resolved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. It's unanimous again, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Moving along to number 9, bike lanes. Town Manager Hewitt.
Yes, sir. It's my understanding at last month's meeting wherein the DOT reps came in and spoke to the board about the status of Ocean Boulevard resurfacing and also talked to us about the possibility of installing bike lanes at the same time. There was a desire for me to go forth and find out some more information. So what I've done is I've provided you with a memo to that effect. I've spoken with the DOT reps again, the representatives from the Grand Strand Area Transportation Study, and also the town's financial advisors to detail that information. What follows in your memo is a summary of that information. What I found out is that GSATS has about $2 million of directly attributable funds that's available to allocate for these types of projects, bike paths, sidewalks, those types of things. There'll be a call for projects and discussion at the GSATS Transportation Coordinating Committee, the TCC, probably in April. That is tentative at this time, but then we'll subsequently move to the Transportation Advisory Committee for a follow-on adjudication or determination on grant funding, possible grant funding. As a reminder to the public and also the board, I'm the representative, Mr. Evans is the alternate to the TCC, and the mayor is the town's representative to the Transportation Advisory Committee. A little bit about some of the criteria. Those projects will compete according to an established criteria. I'm not down in the weeds on what that is yet, but what I did find out is that there's a 20% local match that's required, and anything above that improves the scoring. Sidebar, found out that Ocean Isle Beach has an approximately $775,000 project for 3 miles of bike lanes, and their burden share in that project is 40%, which is about $300,000. Using the same scenario for Holden Beach's proposed project, that cost would be about $680,000 for us. So GSATs has got funding for, if you want to use that same type of ratio analysis, in excess of $1 million that we might be able to get our beaks in there. So what we'll probably be looking at, according to the GSAT's representatives, is that there will be 3 projects more than likely decided in the August, September, October timeframe. Specific to the Public Works Director's question when we dialogue with DOT, is there are no stormwater accommodations made just for the bike lanes. The word that we got was that maybe they could install a couple of infiltration devices at our 2 low areas, I believe 300 block and a little further down is what they spoke to. But again, no stormwater devices specifically attributable to the new impervious surface that would go down. Funds still have to be available up front before DOT can solicit bids. As a reminder, the current DOT resurfacing contract is scheduled to be let in December and paving scheduled before summer of '22. So what I'm thinking is that's March, April, May, before Memorial Day. It goes without saying that there's a number of things that have to happen regarding timing if the town is interested in proceeding with bike lanes. There's a scenario that if funds are available by September, then perhaps it's the contract for bike lanes and the resurfacing is let together, all together in December for the spring of '22 paving. But the scenario that delays the let of the DOT contract just because of some of the hoops that we're going to have to go through will delay that letting until spring, which will push the paving, the resurfacing, and the installation of the bike lanes until after Labor Day, which is 3 to 4 months, not what I was actually thinking would be a year. So we would just block out the summertime is the delay there. And then to the question of how you're going to pay for it, well, you either got to pay for it with cash or some type of installment financing. And my dialogue with the Andrew Carter and Company makes me think that it probably is viable to roll the financing in with our other capital projects, the sewer lift station in particular, that we're getting ready to go in for the upfit on lift station 2, and we've asked for, or we've agreed to borrow the money and pay ourselves back on lift station 3 upgrades. We have to work that into the LGC application, and of course that amount is going to be contingent on if GSATs is agreeable to the grant funding award of 60%. So to reiterate, with no bike lanes, the asphalt resurfacing in spring of '22 at no cost to the town, and if there are bike lanes, probably the asphalt resurfacing is looking at fall of '22 at a $680,000 approximate cost. So DOT closed with us and said that if we were interested, we should continue to stay engaged with them. So that's what I found out, y'all. If there's direction from me to take in pursuing that, we got to get busy with working some of these levers and making this thing come to fruition. There will be a call for projects in April, is what I understand from GSATs, and we will have to put forth our desires then.
Comments, questions, commissioners?
Well, I've gone back to the new land use plan, and obviously bike lanes were something that were one of the things that our survey respondents had been saying they were in favor of, be it off-road or on-road bike lanes. So, you know, we did that survey for a reason, to understand what people want. The few comments that we have received so far from the public have all been in support of the bike lanes. I don't see what downside there is. We have a lot of bike traffic, and people are gonna continue to bike, and it's getting kind of crazy on the sidewalk in the summer and even in the fall. It's something the public has, our residents and our property owners have said that they're in favor of in surveys. I think we should bite the bullet and go ahead with it.
Anyone else?
I would think that the type of community we have here, the people come and they like to be outside, and if they're not on the beach, you see them walking on the sidewalk. They may not do exercise at home, but when they come on vacation, they try to get some exercise in. And I think that it's an improvement to the town that is worth the expenditure, especially if we can get a 60-40 type of split here. So I'm in favor of proceeding with the project.
Mr. Bryan?
Move forward. Let our manager get on with it. Get us in the loop, and let's keep moving forward with it.
Is that consensus of the board? I certainly support that. Unanimously supported, Mr. Hewitt. Consensus of the board is to move ahead.
Sure.
Number 10, Commissioner Sullivan, speed limit on the boulevard.
Okay. This is an item that's been on our radar for well over a year. And due to some of the research that was needed, it kept being delayed and delayed. And last meeting, Chief Dixon gave us a report that a Department of Transportation conducted a survey which found that the speed limit changing from 35 to 45 miles an hour from Greensboro to the western end of the island is permissible under the survey and the results of that survey. And I think that with all the time that was spent on this particular item, we should bring it to a close. And I would make a motion that we continue with the speed limit change that occurs on October 1st through March 31st, and increase the speed limit to 45 miles an hour west of Greensboro Street.
That's your motion, I second.
That's it.
Motion made, second, any discussion?
Yes, what I recall is we were told that DOT would not do marked crossings if we did not lower the speed limit. Is that confirmed, that they will not give us any crosswalks if we do not lower the speed limit? Tim?
Tim Evans, all the conversations prior to this and the qualifications for having crosswalks, there was like 6 of them, I reported it to the, each location is independent. It has to meet those 6 criteria. So if you have 2 that meet it, then you can have the crosswalks. If you have 2 that don't meet the 6 criteria, then they're not going to be allowed to be put there. All right, and so if the question is, can we have crosswalks where they qualify and it's 35 miles an hour speed limit, then yes, we can. If the question is whether we can have crosswalks where there's 45 miles an hour, that's not going to meet the criteria, and it won't be allowed in those areas.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Now I have a second question. There's clearly already 2 walkways that are east of the, proposed for east of the pier that would be marked, which is fine, east of Greensboro. However, there is a 3rd one at Starfish by the fire station, correct?
There are 4 altogether.
Yeah.
I think I listed them last
Yeah, you did.
time.
So Starfish is the next one, which is, you go from Greensboro to Scotch Bonnet to Starfish. To get that third walkway in, is it feasible for us to shift where the 45 mile an hour would start past Starfish? Because that's still a fairly, I call it a fairly dense area. And to get that third one in would mean moving where we start 45 miles an hour a bit further west. Is that possible?
I don't know to be a fact, but I think you're gonna have to get a DOT engineer back to figure out that part again. Just my guess.
Well, they've already designated that it's, okay, here's the way I'm thinking of this.
Well,
They've-
here's what I can't answer.
Yeah,
The area, whenever we got those approvals, we had to block off areas and we had to meet those 6 criteria. Density, location, sidewalks, that kind of thing fall into that. Whether that has to be considered in the area for the 45 miles an hour, if so, you're not gonna be able to meet the criteria. In other words, you'd have to move it outside the area where the 6 criteria become approachable.
understood. I understand.
Yeah.
I would rather see us have the marked walkways on the island and sacrifice the 45 miles an hour for several months of the year. That's my personal preference, so that we have walkways both on the east and the west. I am one commissioner, but that would be my preference.
Okay. I'll just comment because when this was brought to my attention to put on the agenda way back when, I was in favor for lowering it. There was some math done, there was some studies that we were given the benefit of, and I thought that the lower mileage would be beneficial and would raise the safety of the people on the island. However, since we didn't vote on it last year, I had the benefit of watching the traffic with a little bit more personal attention last year. And I am much more concerned with the increased use of golf carts raising the potential for injury than I am with the speed limit being 45 miles an hour. I see parents who would never think of driving in a car holding a baby in their lap, doing it in a golf cart. People are looking at the traffic coming at them with no protection at all, where a rear ender at 5 miles an hour would do little to no damage with you in a car, but would seriously hurt somebody in a golf cart. So I just think that for the safety of the community, it's better to have the speed limit and not have the golf carts than to lower it, get a couple of crosswalks painted, and have more golf carts. So I'll leave my motion as it was, but that's the discussion I had with that.
We have a motion and a second on the floor, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
May we have a vote?
You calling for the vote?
Calling for the vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No?
All right, Madam Clerk, one negative vote, Ms. Pat. Passes though. Chief Dixon, please report.
I'm actually going to segue right into speed limits again. I was going to mention that they do change April 1st. So before we meet again, just to remind everybody out there, speed limit will reduce down to 35 mile an hour. So keep that in mind. And also with that, just like Mr. Sullivan was talking about, golf carts will be allowed on the roadways down there. So if you're operating a golf cart, remember that it is a registered motor vehicle. It's got to have tags, license, insurance, seat belts, the whole 9 yards. So operate it just like you would your regular motor vehicle. Keep your eye out for pedestrians. The weather's getting nice. There's a lot of people out and about. That was really what I had this month. Questions, comments, or concerns, I'll be glad to try to answer them for you.
3 motor vehicle crashes? I just looked at 3 motor vehicle crashes.
Maybe so. I did not pull that number, or directly to see what they were. I could go back and get that information for you. I don't have it right off my.
I'm just wondering where they're happening. I think one of them was when somebody ran into the marsh, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we had, I do remember we had one run off the road into the marsh. The other 1 or 2 could have been a parking lot wreck. I mean, it could have been anything.
Yeah, I would be interested just to make sure it's not any of the intersections that people are particularly worried about.
I understand. I don't remember any major collisions where anybody's gotten hurt this month.
Would use a sign for a couple of weeks.
Yes, there will be one of the signs down there. We're working on
You
relocating
talking
that.
about the speed limit sign?
Yes.
Yeah, one of the flashing signs. Yes.
Any other questions of our chief?
Thank you.
Thank you
you.
for what you and your department do, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sullivan, number 12.
Okay. The item on the agenda is the discussion and the report to the Board of Commissioners on the feasibility of hiring seasonal police officers on Holden Beach. When we engaged in the budget discussions last year, there was a proposal put in front of the board that we increase the Holden Beach Police Department from 8 full-time officers to 11 full-time officers. When we looked at and I apologize because you can't see the attachments which have the information that I'll be talking about, but when we looked at the budget proposal, the hiring of the 3 police officers contributed immensely to a proposed increase of $568,000 in the budget from the fiscal year of 2019-2020 to the fiscal year 2020-2021. At that point, it was suggested that we can use extra police officers because we're better off having 2 police officers on duty at all times, especially for the police officers' safety. But that because the population of the town is only 650 people during the off-season, but swells to about 18,000 during the height of the summer season, that we could use seasonal officers rather than full-time officers during the summer season. So we raised that issue and we discussed it. During the budget process, prior to the authorization to commence a committee to look at the seasonal police officer versus the full-time police officer, the board decided to authorize the hiring of 2 additional police officers. So the seasonal committee had its first meeting after it was authorized in June of 2020. We met, myself and Commissioner Kwiatkowski, the town manager, and the town assistant manager, and then we were assisted by the building inspector, Tim Evans, and let me look. They assisted us in the committee to analyze the issues that needed to be looked at. When we had the committee, as a committee, we decided that the issues that needed to be investigated were the cost, obviously, of the seasonal police officer versus the full-time police officer, how you recruit them, how you retain them, which duties the officers would participate in, and the fringe benefits that they would have, and the training that would be necessary for them to work here. To just cut to the chase a little bit, the recruitment, whether full-time or part-time, is usually done as a result of graduates from the basic law enforcement training courses. The cost is the same, whether it's a full-time or a seasonal employee. And the cost isn't really that great, it's about $1,600. And it depends on whether the recruit pays that themselves or whether the municipality who's going to hire them pays that. Where there was a little bit of a problem is retention, because a recruit who graduates from the BLET, they have to get a job within a year. So they're very willing to take a part-time job, but if they're offered a full-time job subsequent to that, they're even more eager to take the full-time job. So there's a little bit of a problem with retention. We had the benefit of having the police chief from Ocean Isle come speak to us at one of the meetings, and he discussed those type of issues. And I spoke to the police chiefs of Emerald Isle and well, anyway, I spoke to two of the other police chiefs, and they expressed the same ideas about the retention, that retention could become a problem. The other issue that was discussed was what the duties of the seasonal police officer would be. There was some misconception or divergence in ideas where people thought that the seasonal police officer should replace the rangers that we use currently, when I thought really the idea was to have the seasonal police officer do full patrol duty so that they would actually be in place of a full-time police officer. And as we went through the meeting, we kind of narrowed it down to having them take care of the full-time police officers. In a nutshell, the issue that we have here on Holden Beach is we don't have a carpool for police officers. Each police officer is assigned a vehicle, so there are no spare vehicles. If we were to hire a seasonal police officer or a full-time police officer, we'd have to supply them with a vehicle, and the vehicle is approximately $60,000 per vehicle. So, the initial cost of hiring a full-time police officer as opposed to hiring a seasonal police officer, a full-time police officer's salary, benefits, automobile, everything put together is approximately $131,000. This is figures that we had asked the chief to come up with, to supply us with. A part-time police officer is $85,000. The seasonal police officer. Roughly a $46,000 difference in salary, and that difference would carry on every year. So, at the end of the day, right now, we have 10 police officers, or at least we've appropriated the money for 10 police officers, and in the process of filling that up, and that will provide for having 2 police officers on duty at all times. So in my estimation, we're fully staffed at this time. So it really doesn't make sense to hire a seasonal police officer unless you decide, the board decides after taking all this in, that they would prefer to have a police officer rather than a ranger on the beach during the summer. But what I think this report does show, after you look at it, is that it is definitely worth considering. If an opening comes, if police officer X decides they're going to leave, we're going to have that car, not going to take that car with them. And we can hire 2 seasonal police officers and save money. So I think that if there becomes a vacancy in the future, that before we decide to hire a full-time police officer, we have to look very hard at the benefits compared to the the difficulties that a seasonal or part-time police officer present. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Commissioners,
Very self-explanatory, thank you.
Chief, you have anything you'd like to add?
Oh, maybe this is not right place to say it. I understand and respect the commissioner's opinion. That last section, I would just have a different personal opinion on filling a vacancy with part-time or seasonal officers. It comes with a boatload of issues, which we discussed in length during the meeting, so it would just be my opinion that if an officer leaves, that it gets filled back with another full-time officer.
All right. Ms. Sullivan, do you want to make any kind of motions or anything?
No, this was just for me to give a report to the Board of Commissioners.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Okay, we're ready to turn the page to page 2 on the agenda, number 13. Mr. Evans?
This is
Ordinance
housekeeping.
2102.
It's regarding the structural height for structures located in an X zone. This has been before the board, I think, the 4th time. You had it before you at the last board. Y'all considered it, and you have the consistency statement with you that came from staff and the planning board, some planning board members that did meet. With that said, it's just up for a vote to determine whether you want to go forward with this amendment.
In my opinion, is we beat this to death. Are you guys ready to vote on this? Somebody make a motion.
I move that we accept the Town of Holden Beach Ordinance 2102, an ordinance amending the Holden Beach Code of Ordinances, Section 157.006, definitions, height measuring point.
Look for a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. It's unanimous, Madam Clerk. Number 14, Mr. Sullivan. Solid waste.
Solid waste.
Commonly known as trash.
Well, let me just begin by saying that at the close of the last meeting, I asked the community and the people to respond and give us their input on the issues we were going to talk about tonight, whether it's the bike lanes, the solid waste, hiring of attorneys, etc. And as the clerk mentioned earlier, we got approximately 50 emails concerning solid waste. And although I don't agree with the vast majority of the people about the necessity of having some revisions in the ordinance, it's not my place to determine what happens. My place is to do what the electorate would prefer me to do. It's clear from the notes that the electorate would prefer that we not impose a strict rollout period of time, and it's clear that they're not in favor of fines if you violate that. So, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't make some changes to the ordinance. And so, what I would say is we had the ordinance, everybody had an opportunity to look at it last week. We discussed it to some degree last week. But what we did 2 years ago when we implemented this ordinance is we tried to make it easier for people to, and a little bit more economical. So we allowed people to use a recyclable bin instead of a trash bin so that they wouldn't have to purchase an extra bin. It was a mistake. The person who comes down now, they use a mechanical arm. They have no idea whether the trash in the recyclable bin is recyclable or regular trash. They leave it every week. So now that bin is laying out there for 2 weeks. So one of the changes that I would propose we make is that we look at section, it's under section 50.08 rental homes, and we're going to remove, it came out a little late, but in instances where 3 trash cans or more are required, 1 can may be substituted with the contractor-approved recycling bin. We have to remove that and try to educate people not to use the recycling bin, whether they're a rental home or a private home. Just use the recycling bin for recyclables only. The other thing, after listening and reading all of the emails and the issues that people brought up, and the idea that we just discussed a little while earlier about the bike lanes, is we really can't, the idea was to get those cans off of the street. The idea isn't to punish anybody or to make life miserable for anybody. It's to get those cans off the street instead of being out there for 3 days, almost 2 weeks in the off-season when it comes to recyclables. And I believe the other mistake that we made when we put the most recent revisions into the ordinance is not rolling back every single can. If we roll back the full cans, that problem's going to be gone. And that, to me, is a minor inconvenience, because if you roll back a full can to a rental house, either the new renter's going to call up and say, I don't have any room here, you have to send somebody to take care of it, which is going to be the effect anyway, except they don't roll the cans back. And if it's somebody who's going home for the weekend, I think they'll figure it out after a while. If they come back and they say, wow, this can is smelling, they'll figure out a way to take care of that themselves. And if they can't, it's really a very small amount of people compared to the benefit to the whole island in place. So those are the 2 changes that I would suggest be made to the ordinance. The one that everybody can, you can't use your recycle bin at all except for recyclables, and that when the we should see if we can amend the current contract with the vendor to roll back all cans instead of just the empty cans.
And reasonable, and we take the, reading those emails and everything, it seemed that a lot of the folks were concerned about the fines and the time constraints, you know. But what you're asking, that's very reasonable, okay, and I just, the rest, everybody else feel okay with it?
These solve the major problems, and if we focus on the major problems, our objectives are to do what we can, particularly during season, to get those bins off the street on Saturdays. This achieves it, and the recycle thing, it's not working well. I think most of the rental properties, they need that 3rd wet trash bin, that extra wet trash bin, more than they need to recycle. So they can still get a recycle, but it'll be in addition.
This is Brian. I work on the island day in and day out, and in the past couple of weeks, I've looked at the number of cans at houses that I know for a fact are rental houses, that I know for a fact how many bedrooms are in those rental houses, and I know for a fact they are short trash cans. So I don't know where that compliance comes in. I don't know who checks that. But for example, a 3-bedroom rental house has 1 trash can. It's supposed to have 2 according to the ordinance. A 4-bedroom house, rental house, has 1 trash can. It's supposed to have 2 according to the ordinance. I've seen this, I'm not gonna throw anybody under the bus, but I've seen it in at least a dozen houses this week. So I don't know how we enforce that, but that's already written, so I don't know how we come to grips with that. But I think some of the problem is, if you don't have enough trash cans available to dispose of the trash created, then you automatically have a problem. So one thing we gotta get control over, and I don't know how, is to make sure that every house has the correct number of trash cans. And I think the citizens of the town that do rent their houses, the property owners, it's just a really easy thing to add the necessary trash cans to accommodate your renters. It's just the right thing to do. All of this will help, and I absolutely don't agree with somebody not being able to roll their trash can out on Sunday that comes down for the weekend. We have no provision or anybody to take care of that, any service that would provide it for them, and the town doesn't have it, or nobody privately has it. It would have to be a nice neighbor, so I think that's too much to ask. But these other things, just like Mike was saying, and I agree with it, I think if we roll back every can, because I've seen people roll out a can of trash, the truck goes by, they got another pile under their house waiting to be put in it, they go get the empty can, roll it back under their house, stuff it full of trash, roll it straight back to the street, and it sits there all week. So if we could get, I think, some of that stopped, then that would help out a lot. Maybe we can put this trash talk to bed. But definitely, personally, I've seen numerous amounts of houses that are rental houses that I know, because I'm a builder on the island, I know how many bedrooms you have, and I know you're short trash cans. And I think if you get that corrected on most of the houses in some shape or form, it'll solve the bulk of the issues that we're having. So that's already written, and it should somehow be enforced. I don't know how, I don't have a suggestion on how to do that, but.
Earlier this year, or late last year, the town did send a message out in the water bills, because we did discuss having an audit, and the difficulties were raised by staff. So there was a comment in the water bill reminding people how many trash bins they're supposed to have, and to please be in compliance. So if it's not working, I'm eager to hear other ideas of what to do. You'll see that there was a picture left in the packet. I actually saw this house over the weekend around the 600 block that had overflowing bins and about 10 bags next to it. It was a rental property. Don't know if they had the right number of bins, but it is a situation where there's obviously trash on the street, and that happened Saturday, and I'll bet you that trash could have sat there till Tuesday. I don't know. But do they have enough bins? I don't know. Again, you have to remember, if people see things, they are supposed to report it. And if something is reported, it can be looked into. But I'm open to any suggestion how to try again to make sure people have the right number of bins.
Anybody want to make a motion?
That's what I need.
Yeah,
All right,
I'll second.
okay,
Are you striking?
So will we bring the final ordinance next time?
Madam Clerk, do you have the verbiage of the motion? Or would you like to have it
Well,
I think
restated?
you made a statement, not a motion, so I don't write it.
Okay, so
Okay, so we need,
I'll make a motion that we amend the current ordinance, section 50.08, to remove the last sentence that says, in instances where 3 trash cans or more are required, one can may be substituted with a contractor-approved recycled bin. Want to remove that from this, and the other part of the motion is that we instruct the town manager to see if we can amend our current contract with the vendor who rolls back the bins, to go from rolling back only empty bins to rolling back all bins.
Are we,
Okay, town clerk, could you clarify to me that on page 39, section 5004, what is struck out at the bottom is what the current ordinance says,
Yes.
okay? Because that talks about full containers will stay curbside until emptied by the next pickup. So that needs to be, that section needs to be changed. Because it will be that all trash and recycling containers will be rolled back, whether empty or full.
And also 5002, the replacing irregular recycle, it just says, in addition to, not in replacement of.
Shall we bring a clean ordinance next month, just to,
Yes.
yeah, we'll bring a clean ordinance next month.
Okay.
That's probably best.
Madam Attorney, do you have a problem with that?
No, Mayor.
But
Okay.
having said that, is it acceptable for the mayor to proceed to see about the rollback contract?
Yes.
It's because we're starting to get close to season.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
so-
could look into that fairly quickly.
Okay,
I'll withdraw the prior motion and just ask that we instruct the town manager at this time to investigate whether or not the current rollback contract can be amended.
All right, that's a directive, Mr. Hewitt.
Got it.
All right, number 15, Mr. Sullivan,
Okay,
Town Attorney.
yes. We went through the process of sending out the RFP. We interviewed various representatives from the law firms, and it's time for us to decide on hiring a town attorney. So I think everybody had an opportunity to review their qualifications and to ask any questions they felt like asking, and heard all the responses. I think it's time for us to vote on which firm to hire.
Anybody want to put forth a motion?
I have one question to ask to the board. I was extremely impressed with Stephen Colvin. I understand the difficulty because H2Go meets at 6 o'clock on the third Tuesday of every month, and we meet at 5 o'clock at the moment, and I don't know if we're gonna go back to 7 o'clock or not. That's probably a future discussion. But what struck me was he seems a good fit. Are we willing to entertain looking at possibly starting our meeting a bit earlier so that he could be with us for, say, the first hour and a half, and then go and do his, if he was willing to do it, so that he would be making one trip down to Brunswick County a month still, but it would be for two different things? Or do people think it's getting too complicated and that that's not worth exploring? I'm just raising it as just one way to consider if people agree that he's,
Too complicated, too many variables.
I think he's very qualified, and I was also impressed, but travel time and the unavailability it doesn't seem like a good fit. But I definitely think he's,
I would say that I was impressed with his background in handling the type of things we're very concerned about. Actually, the cost might be a wash because he's a little bit less than the other people we were considering, so the travel time can kind of be absorbed. If it's not a problem, we could check and see, but I want somebody here. I mean, it's a disqualifier to me to have a town attorney that's not able to come to the town
Yeah.
meetings. So we'd need to have some kind of, you know, recognition and accommodation from him that he would be here, and then go to the other. But that would require us to also adopt on a permanent basis, meeting at either 4 or 5 o'clock, so.
I would not have raised this except, again, I think he was a very strong candidate, and I understand, Gerald, your comment. I didn't want to leave it without us at least discussing it.
So, I mean,
Well, in addition, I think Richard Green and his firm is also, you know, for what we deal with, a lot of what we deal with, I mean, they're very capable as well, so, I mean, they're right up the street. I'm just
the old guy on this one, but I'm looking at, we got a lady that's paid in the pot, just like you and I and everybody else, she's right here. And if something did come up and we needed the bigger guns, we always can get the bigger guns, you know? So I would like to put a motion on the floor that we hire Kay to be our, you know, to be our town attorney. Captain.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. It's unanimous. And I think it's in order for me, on behalf of the town, to certainly thank our acting attorney for doing a good job through the years, and we appreciate what all you've done.
And a reminder, she's still got a whole bunch of cleanup stuff that
Yeah.
she's got to do for us too.
Okay, I take back all the nice things that I said to your thing. Okay, number 16, Mr. Sullivan, Woody Tyner's appointment.
yes. Well, we're all aware that former Commissioner Tyner resigned, leaves an opening. And if we didn't get along so well here, we'd have a lot of stymied, nothing would get done, right? We'd have 2 for, 2 against. So I think it's necessary that we get the 5th person into the position, especially since we're going into the budget session. The earlier that person is on board, the better off we're all going to be. And the statute is in our papers, and you can look at it, and it just says that we have to nominate the person to take the commissioner's place. It doesn't give you a whole lot of how you do it or how you must do it. And I'll give you my point of view is I think we should ask anybody in the town that wants to apply to become a commissioner to submit their qualifications and curriculum vitae, and we can look at it. We can interview them as we do for a board member, and then we take a vote, and we decide based on that way. That way, nobody's precluded from offering their services, and we don't have any type of preceded person that we want to be a board member as opposed to the people in general.
And it's just for the amount of time left on Woody.
According to the statute, yes.
No,
No,
No.
he will be up for reelection this
Yes,
next
yes, I'm
November.
sorry. He
Yeah.
gets reelected this
Yeah,
coming.
yeah, Woody had
voting
4 years. This
Yeah.
is just.
Woody won for 4, but this person would have to run for reelection come December. Yeah, November. So,
I can live with that process. I think that's a good process.
We have the Madam Clerk go and get it out for us. Anyone interested, you know, get it on our webpage and we start from there.
just to try to put this one to rest too, I would suggest that we give people, 2 weeks to apply, and then we schedule a meeting so that the person could be sitting in the chair for the April Board of Commissioners meeting, rather than waiting for the April Board of Commissioners meeting to do the interviews and vote on whoever that person's going to be.
Yeah, because we will be starting budget discussions, we should be starting budget discussions before the April meeting. I certainly hope so.
Well, I'll put it to you like this, I haven't been waiting on the board to fill the vacant position before we started on work, the staff started working on budget. I don't know what timeline that will happen. I do know that I have a suspense to deliver a budget message to the board by the 31st of May, and the budget has to be adopted by the end of June, so.
But I would say that you should proceed
we
with the
are-
budget meetings and let the new person catch up, rather than having us all sit here and then have to rush at the end. I don't think that's necessary or wise.
I'm speaking to the staff preparation. We're going ahead and getting ready. But I would like to remind the board that we've only had response to my solicitation last month for board availability to have budget meetings, and I hadn't got anybody except one commissioner. So if y'all could relook the calendar at that, it would certainly help us to get our schedules together.
I think I demand a recount on that.
Two. Two's not a quorum, y'all.
No,
I'm always around. I'm always around.
All right, so is it the consensus of the board that the clerk will get the word out for anyone interested to submit their name and their qualifications, and we'll proceed with inviting them to appear before you commissioners at what kind of, you said 2 weeks? Is that what you said?
that'll give people a chance to respond. 2 weeks, 10 days, whatever.
If you,
Whatever.
Let's see what we get.
I think it'd be good if we could get this wrapped up before Easter weekend, before the 1st of April. So, yeah, if you give them 10 days, we can schedule a special
10
meeting.
days, please.
Okay. Is that enough direction, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
All right.
That's not a lot of,
Hmm.
that's not a lot of time, but
People know
We'll
that there's
see.
I think people know there's an opening, so, you know,
I think we should at least let it be 2 weeks. I'm looking to 2 or 3 weeks, that's just me. 10 days seems kind of quick.
let's see what we get. Let's see what we get.
Okay. You good with Mike?
I'm
Said
fine.
10 days, okay.
All right, Mr. Hewitt, you're next. Number 17, Manager's Report.
Yes, sir. We've got everything we need in hand for the lift station 3 upgrade completion. And I have in my report tonight that we were waiting for the lien waivers from the subcontractors, but I believe I'm in receipt of that this evening, and can proceed with final payouts and starting the lift station 2 upgrade process, which will include requests for qualifications from engineers, and then we can go ahead through the same process that we've used for lift station 4 and lift station 3's upgrade. I know that the Public Works Director is tickled that the Vactor truck that the board approved the lease purchase on last month is on station, and we're just waiting to get the tags for it to put it on the road. You may be aware that last week, There was federal legislation passed, the American Rescue Plan of 2021, that's going to provide almost $200,000 to the town of Holden Beach. We should receive the first half of that distribution in mid-June of this year, with the second half coming a year later in June. Important point to note is that it will be distributed through the state. And probably a more important point is that we haven't received a specific protocol on how the funds can be used, but it appears to fit a number of purposes for municipal services, emergency response, that kind of thing, to include water and sewer infrastructure improvements. We're still on standby with the Wilmington District awaiting instructions for the federal project investigation study. And to the status on our FEMA projects, Hurricane Dorian has been obligated in the North Carolina payment system, but and also back to the feds. The project is in basically with the Congress, the legislative review. Before projects are approved or finally let go, they let Congress, the representatives, make the announcement. We expect release of that information probably tomorrow. It may even come through today. Isaias strand damage, dimension, and description, the triple D, was submitted to FEMA last week. Current status is that those strand losses for Category G were routed to the North Carolina payment system, but then they went back to environmental and historic preservation for another review. I guess there was some comments or questions initiated from the public notice requirement of that project that stimulated another look-see on it. We've also received reimbursements for some of our Cat B emergency protective measures expenses that we anticipate bringing back before the board in order to make sure our books are straight with the budget amendment at the April meeting. The potential and likelihood that all four storms, Florence, Michael, Dorian, and Isaias, are going to be done as one giant project appears to be increasing, but approval of the Dorian and Isaias project worksheets will be required before moving ahead with a bundled project, in addition to needing to obtain the necessary permits and the interim financing. Regarding our sand fence project installations, making great progress. A couple of days of fair weather have facilitated that. It is complete down to somewhere in the vicinity of the 800 block. Looks like we're going with our existing supplies and CAMA's continued cooperation that that will allow for extension well into the 900 block. So that's a good thing. The Parks and Recreation Master Plan update being led by McGill is well underway. There's been a steering committee, a series of steering committee and 6 focus group meetings that total approximately 60 people. The focus groups are in areas related to families, or grouped in areas families, retirees, community-based, realtors, water-based recreation, exercise enthusiasts, and parks and art. They've convened and participated in fleshing out the framework of the study itself. The study the update uses a survey that's available on our website. Initial feedback appears to be really good so far regarding participation. In less than a week, we've had 218 surveys come back to us. If there are individuals that do not have access to the internet or just prefer to complete a paper survey, They can visit the picnic shelter out back here at Bridgeview Park from 12 to 2 or 4 to 7 p.m. on Friday, April the 2nd. COVID precautions will be followed with mask and social distancing required. McGill will also be collecting survey information over the Saturday before Easter at a number of beach accesses at this time to be determined. Lastly, looking forward to Easter weekend, there will be an event. It's an Easter egg drop, drive-by Easter egg drop. The town will hold that event on Friday evening, April the 2nd from 4 to 7. And individuals will drive by Town Hall to receive eggs and see the Easter Bunny from their car. Interested participants should call Town Hall to register. You will not be able to interact on an individual basis with the Easter Bunny, but you will be able to see him. That ends my report.
Any questions or comments? All right, the mayor's comments are going to be brief. Some observations on the beach strand. The last couple of weeks, the number of dogs on the beach is growing by leaps and bounds, as are the dogs leaping and bounding with no leashes because they feel good with spring fever like the rest of us, I guess. But just to remind everyone, dogs are to be on leashes. And the dredge is still at the inlet crossing in Lockwood Folly Inlet, pumping sand to the west end of Oak Island, or it was a couple of days ago. Is that still the case, Mr. Hewitt?
I think
As far as
so.
you know, yeah. And another observation on the beach strand, I've been looking at the beach strand for a long, long time, and this winter, I think I'm safe in saying this, it's the least number of dead birds and turtles that I can remember. Usually when it's a cold winter, the loons and the other seabirds are right numerous through the winter months, you know, washing up from assumingly the cold weather. But this year just haven't been that many. So that's good news. The people traffic on the beach strand is really picking up, and I think it's indicative that we're going to have an excellent summer. The rental reservations are coming in very, very well. And so I'm hopeful of a good season and hoping that COVID will give us more latitudes to do things that we all humans enjoy around the water. So I'm very optimistic for the summer of 2021. And with that, Mr. Brown, do you have anything that you'd like to talk about this morning, afternoon?
Very short and sweet. Everyone just stay safe, you know. I think our meeting did really well tonight. I'd like to just say that I'm glad that we listened to our constituents and our neighbors and everybody on our couple of little things here. Because I'd had several contact me about the speed limit. I had a whole bunch more call me about the trash, you know. And our deal is sitting here, we're working for y'all, the citizenry of the island. This is not a little five fellas going, you know, run the town. We're running it for you. So you continue to call and things that you want. If there's anything that you want us to work on, you need to let us know. We're open. We're here, you know, for y'all. And Jeremy, good job. Chris, want to commend you. I've seen the boys working extra hard here a little bit lately, and just thankful for that. And Mr. David, keep up the good work.
Mr. Sullivan?
Well, I'd just like to remind everybody that the yard waste pickup has resumed, and it's the second and fourth Friday of the month for March, April, and May. that Brunswick County is also having a survey having to do with transportation. I think it's something that we should give them our opinion on, because we have issues with transportation. The town sent out a note on the 11th of March, and it contains the website that you can reach to make your comments known. And it's brunswickcounty.ctpmetroquest.com, all lowercase letters. And last but not least, I'd like to remind everybody that tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day. Enjoy yourself, and Erin go bra.
Brian?
Well, I'd like to wish everybody a good evening and thanks for listening for those of you that are out there. I want to commend the board a little bit, pat you on the back for picking up some of these cans we've been kicking for so long. Hopefully we've done the right thing to improve the situation on all these issues. I'd also like to thank Tim Evans, because most people don't know it, but in the past 3 or 4 months, we put to bed some long-standing issues in the building industry on this island that is very much appreciated by the builders and the residents alike. It's definitely going to benefit the island, so hats off to you for that and your hard work. And I've got some updates on the parking. I'm going to save it to the next meeting. However, I would still like, we heard from some paid parking vendors, and there's some really optimistic discussion on bringing in some revenue to help with all of the money that we're having to spend on different things, and maybe also address some of the parking problems that we do have. I heard what you don't want. I would like some suggestions if we could maybe eliminate some right-of-way parking, rights-of-way parking, or parking where you don't like it as it is currently, which I know a lot of you don't, because I hear the complaints. The police have an issue enforcing it. It's a problem. So it's another can that we're looking at trying to at least help out with. And the paid parking was very promising, where it wouldn't cost the residents really anything to implement it. A lot of the coastal communities in particular, up and down the coast of North Carolina, have already implemented it. Spoken to some of them where it's working. I've spoken to some of them where it's kind of revenue neutral, meaning it's not making a lot of money. But it is allowing them to afford areas to park. I've got a lot of calls or emails from people, and I don't know how this is possible, but our Holden Beach Pier is up for sale. And I've got a lot of people with some sentiments about how we as a town could keep that possibly. So I would love to have any ideas from the public or any support for looking at it or considering it. I'm open for suggestions on that. So those 2 items were big, as far as communication between me and myself and the general public in the past month. And I said I would bring them in my comments, and that's what I'm doing. But you guys have a good evening, safe St. Patrick's Day, and enjoy yourself.
Ms. Pat?
Thanks to everybody who's listening in. Thank you for all the public comments. They are appreciated. Some are appreciated more, some are appreciated less, but they are all appreciated. We need to know what you're thinking. Budget discussions will be starting soon, not just at our town level, but remember, the county also has budget discussions, and they will be creating their budget as well. I would encourage people to just keep an eye on the county website, what's going on. And when we get our schedule together, which I hope is soon, it'll be published, and we will be having meetings. And again, if you have things that you think you want to have happen that should be objectives for this Board of Commissioners in the town, you need to let us know quickly, because we will be wrapping this all up by the end of May. Thanks a lot.
Can I have one more?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to thank Mr. Evans, because you've been doing a lot lately with ordinances and stuff, like this height issue and I know that takes a lot of time with the workload that you have on already, because we've been in a big building, so I would just like to say thank you. Thank you for what you do for the town.
One thing that I forgot to mention about our waterfront on Oceanside, most people know that we've had a whale visiting this year again. And in my lifetime, I've seen several of them. I haven't had the fortune of seeing the one this year, but I understand many of you have, and it's always a pleasure. I'll never will forget, a few years ago, we had one that stayed here about 2 weeks, right around the foot of the bridge, and some of you in the room might remember that. But anyway, it's always interesting to see the whales come to Holden Beach, so the word's traveling, what a wonderful place it is. All right, Madam Clerk, the next item on the agenda is executive session, I believe.
Yes, sir. Would you like me to read it?
I would love for you to read that.
Executive session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A6 to discuss qualifications, competence, performance of a public employee. North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A3 to consult with the town attorney, and North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A1 to approve minutes.
Okay, the chair would like to have a motion to go into executive session.
Motion.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye. Okay, if you people would excuse us, we're going to go into executive session. I don't expect it to last. All right, we're back in regular session. I need a motion to approve the minutes
Resolution.
of the resolution. Before you, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, what else do we have, Madam Clerk?
That is it.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion
Motion to adjourn.
Ho, ho, ho.
We have to approve this.
Oh, no, that's the resolution.
That's the resolution.
Oh, that was what we just did? Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's getting late, man, it's getting late.
I've lost it, sorry.
That's right.
All right, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous.